Greatness. Rocket League Esports is obsessed with greatness. And who can blame us? The scene has produced a lot of it over the years. So much in fact, that anywhere people can talk, you can find conversations about the greatest blank ever. While some of these topics are fairly unanimous, there is a discussion to be had that serves to build up the history of this esports. But what about the shocks? The odds-defying results that stunned the world? An upset is defined as an unexpected result or situation, and my oh my, has Rocket League Esports given us many of those over the years. From world championships to online regionals and basically everything in between, countless matches have gone against the grain over the years. But which were truly the most shocking? That's what I'm here to talk about. Or at least try, because unlike the GOAT players or rosters, there is not a consensus on this topic at all. Therefore, I've gotten 7 stunning results from RL Esports history. There aren't necessarily the 7 objective biggest upsets ever, but 7 of the most interesting to me that I want to shine a light on. Ladies and gentlemen, what is Rocket League Esports' greatest upset? And what better place to begin than in the beginning? And not just the beginning of the rlcs, no, I'm talking about Rocket League itself. 2015 is the only year of Rocket League's history not to exist during the rlcs era, and to say it was the Wild West would be a gross understatement. The status quo and pecking order of players and teams was in constant flux, given the game quite literally had only been released in July. However, when it came to the very early Rocket League competitions, one team single-handedly made North American tournaments flat out uncompetitive. Their name, Cosmic Aftershock, consisting of Sad Jr., Gibbs, and the mountain himself, Krenovi. We all know this team was good, but just how good they were needs emphasizing. From Rocket League's first competitive tournament in the ESL Kickoff Cup, Cosmic Aftershock was undefeated for 39 days. Oh, and that was in terms of series played, not just their overall tournament record. 54 matches played, 54 matches won, 0 losses. How? Well, for the time, Gibbs' permanent goalkeeping genuinely worked in the early meta that lacked good defense. But more significantly, Krenovi was just genuinely so good that he could unironically 1v2 other top duos, as he notably did to Marky Duda and Wrongway Woody, on EU servers by the way. Plus, it's not like Sad Jr. wasn't also one of the best players in the game in his own right. All of this led to Cosmic Aftershock's undefeated streak becoming iconic, and it meant Major League Gaming's first Rocket League tournament would become very memorable, thanks to a special someone.
Touch the ball, but Gambit's going to be there as well. Tries to keep it in play. He goes Kyle! Kyle! No! Kyle! What? Oh my goodness gracious me! What a finish! Wow!
Yes, even though in hindsight it's just a $500 weekly cup, Kyle Masc's unforgettable 0-second winner that handed Cosmic Aftershock their first ever loss, that is Rocket League's first great upset. It may not hold up to today's standards, but for August 2015, it was, and still is to some, a legendary moment that was the first to take the established status quo and shatter it. That being said, I'm sorry, but I cannot ignore that it was a best of 3, which does hurt it. It goes without saying that at a professional level nowadays, BO3s might as well be a coin flip, but this next upset gets included in spite of being a best of 3 series. We go to the international LAN stage, where the best teams from around the world wage war. And in January, the battleground was in Germany, as DreamHack Leipzig 2018 took place. At the time, it was the most stacked Rocket League LAN ever, with all 8 European rlcs teams in attendance, 5 NA rlcs teams, and a smattering of top RLRs plus bubble rosters to round out the 26-team field. Team Envy, being Remco, Devo and Greasymeister, were looking to bounce back from a disappointing end to 2017, as Remco and Devo's abysmal defense of their World Championship had overshadowed the fact that the trio had shown good form in the prior off-season LANs, leading to high hopes of a bounce back at Leipzig. That hope would quickly go out the window as disappointment turned into disaster with a day 1 exit for Envy in 17th to 24th place. And no, they did not get unlucky with the group draw. They lost to London Esports, Godswilla, Didris, and Distan. You probably only recognize Godswilla as the guy that got benched. Or maybe Didris from his 0-7 RLRS run later that year? Regardless, then, and especially now in hindsight, it was a horrible loss for Envy. It forced an immediate roster change almost out of embarrassment more than anything. And over 5 years later, it still stands strong as one of the LAN stage's greatest upsets. Onto the rlcs, and we're fast forward to 2021, a year defined by one of the greatest rosters of all time. Monkey Moon, Mark by Ace, and Extra of Team BDS. A team so good that even when they lost, there was basically no doubt they were still Europe's best. In spite of losses to Vitality and Karmine Corp in the rlcs CeX and WePlay finals respectively, they were still justifiably the favourites to win the first regional event of rlcs 21-22. And lo and behold, they made it to the grand finals. Against Endpoint? Yes, Team Endpoint had flirted with top 4 stays in Europe a year prior during rlcs CeX, but even that felt like them overachieving to an extent. Their natural decline throughout rlcs CeX compared to the likes of Dignitas or Vodafone Giants was not a shock. With Seiko joining the team for the new season, expectations were again middling, as they had signed someone who was basically unknown to the wider community, and paired him alongside the solid yet unspectacular combo of Metsonaris and Relating Wave. Being the 14th seed in Europe was not only fitting, but arguably a bit generous, and overly down to the prior season's fleeting success. Regardless, the first regional of the season arrived, and Endpoint proved to be pretty good, comfortably navigating both Swiss stages and advancing to the top 8, which soon became the top 4 as the informed Misfits were dispatched 4-1. Impressive! But up next was Karmine Corp, the pre-season WePlay Invitational champions. But blink and you miss it, Endpoint had broken the blue wall as well, and had earned a grand finals date with God themselves, Team BDS. Now, despite their good results this event, Endpoint was still viewed as way out of their depth in a grand finals. No less against the uncrowned kings of Europe, who had held the region in a vice grip for a year at this stage. In addition, the best of set grand final meant if Endpoint were to succeed, they would have to beat the team that had never lost a regional final. Twice. But that wasn't the concern for most fans. Unironic, 8-0 predictions were thrown out for Team BDS, and well, they were justified. Unfortunately for most betting men, hindsight is undefeated, and this would become the stage for a future World Champions breakout performance, as Seiko dazzled and lit up the pitch, invigorating Wave and Metsa to unlock a new elite level of consistency that made Endpoint excel. In the end, while it was still a close affair, by a scoreline of 4-3 and 4-3, Endpoint beat BDS, and Endpoint won a regional.
Overlaying Wave scores! Endpoint have done it! Endpoint are your European Open champions, and it's Relating Wave to finish it off. BDS are beaten 2-0.
If I'm being honest, it still feels a little surreal to say over a year later. Endpoint actually won an rlcs regional. 2 actually. They ended up becoming Europe's #1 seed for the Stockholm Major at that. Just simply incredible. A wholesome, feel-good underdog story that will live long in their memories. Yet, it wasn't even the best upset in 2021. You see, while BDS was taking names in Europe during rlcs CeX, Ground Zero Gaming was doing a similarly destructive job in OCE. Already considered the region's best team after the fall split, Cringe Society's move for Jules sent Torsos in the opposite direction towards Ground Zero, and in turn, created an unholy super duo with him and Anthus. They, alongside Express, were dominant, going back-to-back for regional wins to end 2020 with the 2 clear best players in the region among their ranks. It seemed inevitable that they would go 3 for 3 once the split resumed in the new year. However, lurking in the shadows was the attack of the Invisible Ninjas. Leduc, Spydoge and Walcott were not unfamiliar to the odd miracle. They went from going winless in rlcs Season 7 to spectacularly qualifying for the World Championship in Season 8, but quickly returned back to mediocrity in 2020. It truly seemed like their Season 8 run was a genuine anomaly. Given throughout 6 rlcs CeX events, the trio's reunion had only yielded 3 top 8 placements. Safe to say, when they matched up against Ground Zero in the semi-finals of the 3rd Winter Regional, the odds were unnaturally stacked against them. Even just being top 4 was amazing for the Ninjas, But unlike Endpoint's aforementioned run, which was deceptively filled with quality wins, the Invisible Ninjas had only beaten the hit and miss Mindfreak roster to get top 4. Alas, the match started, and a hair over 20 minutes later, Ground Zero was cruising, up 3-0 in the best of 7. I actually remember staying up late to watch this OC regional live, given I had a holiday. And upon seeing Ground Zero lock in the third game, I went to make some food and get ready for the grand finals, because a best of 7 reverse sweep was just not going to happen. Only 12 in the entire 5.5 year history of RL Esports had ever happened to that point, with just 5 of those coming in the RLCS. Plus, the Invisible Ninja Trio had never beaten Ground Zero. Like, ever. So imagine my shock when I returned to my PC to see a Game 6 0-second winner from Leduc to force a 7th game. There was no way Ground Zero was going to get reverse swept in a best of 7 by the Invisible Ninjas. Right? Well, this Game 7 would ultimately be one where the indomitable Ground Zero, they fumbled their big chances, and thus, the Invisible Ninjas capitalized.
Invisible Ninja have done it! They've reverse swept to make the grand final!
Pandemonium does not even begin to describe this result. The geographically upside down region had its pro scene turned upside down in an instant, as OCE's Forgotten Miracle best of 7 reverse swept its modern dynasty. It was a result so monumental, it overshadows the fact that the Invisible Ninjas actually went all the way. They went on to win the regional championship over Dire Wolves in the grand finals. For domestic oceanic play, an 8 seed accomplishing that in the manner they did, such a feat may never be topped. Looking at 2022 now, and it's time to examine a region where not even one team, but a single player was and is the dynasty. We're talking about Asia Pacific and rlcs. The Japanese star impressed many with his mechanical prowess over the years, and became synonymous with Asia for most Rocket League fans. Once APAC was added to the RLCS in October of 2021, rlcs stood to gain the most, with his APAC tournament record in the prior 12 months being 9 wins and just 1 second place. Along with wins in 2 of Asia's biggest events ever in the Gulliver Cup and APL's The Kickoff, both in 2020, whatever team rlcs picked for RLCS was inevitably going to see a lot of gold, and more importantly, trips to major international lands. The lucky team would be Tokyo Verdy, and to the surprise of no one, their fall split was a clean sweep, as they even set an RLCS series win streak record on their way to representing APAC internationally. However, the start of winter presented some resistance as NIMT managed to end Verdy's undefeated streak and take home a regional title. Verdy would take the next 2 APAC regionals, but NIMT still gave them some challenges, making the upcoming APAC major qualifier bracket far less of a formality on paper. That was until NIMT had to back out due to other commitments, thus ridding Verdy of their biggest threat. To not have a measly 3-team playoffs, the next highest seed in DeToNator was drafted in to complete the 4-team bracket. To this point, DeToNator had never won a regional, nor had they ever beaten Tokyo Verdy in the series. Not that that should surprise you, like, they were never meant to be in this major qualifier for a reason. However, before long, DeToNator had ran the lower bracket, and was somehow just 1 series away from the winter major. Only the aforementioned, nigh on undefeatable Tokyo Verdy was in their way, a team whose only real threat couldn't even play in the qualifier to begin with. Back-to-back lands for rlcs seemed as good as secured, especially given Verdy had a 1 game advantage as a reward for coming through the upper side of their bracket against the team they had never lost to. But on that fateful Tuesday, Asian Rocket League stole all the headlines around the globe, as despite the game disadvantage, and despite the fact they should have never been in the bracket, for the first time ever, DeToNator beat Tokyo Verdy, and DeToNator qualified for the Los Angeles Major. Not even 6 months into APAC's RLCS story, and their poster child in rlcs had already missed a land in the most extraordinary of fashions. But enough of this online crap. Surely the recent plethora of RLCS lands has given us a modern miracle, right? Well, let me tell you about the time South America's onliners destroyed the uncrowned world champion.
And it looks like they're just not finding any opportunities.
Look at it.
That is going to be
This is a very, very different series. A lot has changed since then, and the dunk, the brute force. Sad will finish it off.
What a breakout here for Team Secret. They got two players. They got a shot. And it's going to be saved there. Extra keeps it away, but Knight is there for another one. And just like game number 1, Team Secret take the lead again.
The return to London for the rlcs got off to an earth-shattering start, as an upper round 1 of the Spring Major, 15th seed Team Secret trio swept 2nd seed and heavy favourites Team BDS. Hindsight might make it seem less crazy. South America is the best and deepest of the expansion regions, and Team BDS with Seiko, despite their eventual coronation, would continue to have poor showings beyond this. But hindsight is 2020, and the reality is that an already major winning Team BDS had built a super team that had convincingly won 2 regionals in a row and came 2nd in another. Pairing Seiko and Monkey Moon together was broken, and them faltering at any point before the grand finals of London, it seemed impossible. As for Team Secret, skepticism surrounding them had begun to rise during the spring split. Yes, they had still qualified for LAN, but a fruitless LA Major, while expected, was also a bit disappointing. However, it was the end of the online spring split that would see the club establish themselves as the other form team from Brazil and actually challenge Furia, thus lowering Secret's stock even further. Plus, there was also the issue of Masc being winless at rlcs LANs to this point. With an unenviable 0-8 series record, he just seemed destined to only thrive online. Thankfully for Masc, this series versus BDS would be without a shadow of a doubt the greatest 20 minutes of Rocket League he ever played, as Team Secret showed up big time. They came out the gate hot, winning 4-1 on Manfield Knight, but as Game 2 progressed, it became more and more apparent that Team BDS was not only on the back foot, but showing an uncharacteristically poor level. Once Sadness sunk Game 2's overtime winner, everything just clicked for Team Secret. The third game had to be seen to be believed. Team BDS's collapse, combined with Team Secret hitting their 1% peak form, led to the most unnatural of pop-offs from what many would call South America's third best roster at the time.
He's trying to read BDS a bedtime story right now. Look at this double over Seiko. Defense not there, because how do you stop that? You can't stop that.
The end result was not even close. And it's not that Secret beat BDS. It's that they demolished them. There were some self-inflicted wounds from BDS, no doubt about that. But for one series in that specific trio's LAN history, Sad, Knight and Matt were simply unplayable. It's all the more fascinating in hindsight, because outside of an impressive 4-0 win over Veloce at the World Championship, this specific Team Secret trio did literally nothing else of note at LAN, ever. All the while, for Team BDS season as a whole, this result was a massive anomaly. I'm sure we all know, but they won the World Championship a month later. The fact that this result is so random, it honestly adds to it for me. Like, how did this ever happen? In isolation, to me, it is the most impressive rlcs upset ever, given the contrasting skill level of both rosters. And maybe, it is the flat-out greatest upset in this esports history. That is, if it was not for this one final result. One that single-handedly changed the status quo of RL Esports on a continental level. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk about OC. It is time to talk about the Chiefs defeating NRG. You might be wondering, why is RL Esports' greatest upset not OC's first ever win internationally, but their second? Well, Season 3 of the RLCS was OC's international debut, and while the expectations for OC had a huge variance, everyone could agree that out of all the opponents Alpha Sydney could have gotten in round 1, Denial was one of the best for them. The Canadian roster had only qualified for that season's World Championship through a big upset in their own right, eliminating G2 in the North American Regional Playoffs. As impressive as this was, it was very obvious that this wasn't some incredible gameplay from Denial, but rather a classic G2 choke. Sad Jr. did literally win a game on keyboard and mouse. Regardless, it meant that while officially, OC's RLCS debut saw them play and defeat the NA 4 seed, realistically it was only NA's 5th best roster at the time. arguably their 6th if you consider Team Iris as well. This is to say, expectations were again low for the trio of Drippe, Jake and Torsos for the next World Championship 5 months later. Now signed by Chiefs Esports Club, they would once again face the NA 4 seed in round 1, only this time it would be G2 Esports themselves. And as crazy as it sounds in hindsight, this was once again considered their best chance at a victory, given G2 had been very hit and miss in the lead up to this event. Alas, G2 dispatched the Chiefs 3-1 to begin their own great run, and thus, OC's brightest hope waited in the lower bracket, where they would run into NRG. Now NRG, at the same World Championship that saw OC debut about half a year prior, had finally turned a corner and actually played good on LAN, placing an impressive 3rd place. They followed that up with victory at the X Games Invitational, and while they weren't NA's #1 team now thanks to Cloud9, they had still placed 3rd at the recent Northern Arena Invitational and were considered among the top teams in the world heading into this championship. If the Chiefs couldn't beat G2, what chance would they stand against NRG, a proven international LAN champion? Well, within 45 minutes, NRG versus Chiefs would enter infamy, as it was a series that from the outset, the Chiefs established control in, winning their games 3-2, 4-1 and 4-0. The match still went the full distance, but the final game left no doubt at who the better team was. It wasn't the X Games winning trio of Jacob, Fireburner and Garrett G. It was Jake, Drippe and Torsos from Australia.
And with 10 seconds left, another clear with Drippe will confirm the biggest upset in rlcs history. They couldn't do it yesterday against G2, but today the Chiefs will do it against the former Kings of the North. NRG are out.
This single series broke down the barrier that Rocket League was just a 2-region esport. It changed the status quo forever, showing that players and teams from around the world were not just there to make up the numbers, but to compete with and beat the best in the world. You want the proof? No one talks about Chiefs beating NRG in Las Vegas over a year later, despite it being a comparable skill gap on paper, because that barrier had already been broken down and the phenomenon of NA and EU losing to another region had been normalized. Same for when South America or Middle East got their first ever rlcs series wins internationally. It all traces back to that fateful day in Washington DC in late 2017 that changed Rocket League Esports forever. So to answer the question, what is the greatest upset in Rocket League Esports history? It is the Chiefs Esports Club defeating NRG at the rlcs Season 4 World Championship.